Okay, students, welcome back to Adventures in Technology and Adventures in Working from Home. Uh, this video PowerPoint is going to talk about combining sentences using adjective clauses. Similarly to the last time we did this with adverb clauses, the whole point here is to take two simple sentences and make them into one. Now, I noticed on some of your quizzes, some of you combined sentences, made two of them into one, but you used a coordinating conjunction like and, but, or so. Grammatically, that's fine. That takes two sentences and makes them into one. But the exercise here is to take two sentences and basically put one into the other one using a dependent clause. And right now we're talking about adjective clauses. Okay, so here's an example. Sentence 1, my classmate studied hard for the test. Great. Sentence 2, she got an A. Both of those simple sentences, independent clauses, subject, verb, and object. So now we need to figure out where we can combine these sentences. Now, there's going to be what I call a point of overlap. So basically in each of those sentences there is something that can be the same thing. So if you look at my classmate studied hard for the test, she got an A. Well, it looks like she and classmate are the same person. So now you want to combine these sentences knowing that she and classmate are the same. And remember, adjective clauses go in the middle of the sentence. They don't go in the beginning, they don't go at the end, they go in the middle, and they have to follow the noun that they're giving information about. So you can say, my classmate who got an A studied very hard for the test. So in this one, you are making who got an A the adjective clause, right? Basically, you substitute she for who because she is who, and that is the classmate. Or you can even say, my classmate who studied very hard for the test got an A. Right? Same thing. You're just choosing different ways to combine the sentences. Another example over here in the purple. My uncle opened a new store. He made a lot of money. Okay, two completely separate sentences. Now, if we were using coordinating conjunctions, my uncle opened a new store, comma, so he made a lot of money. If we were using adverb clauses, because my uncle opened a new store, comma, he made a lot of money. But now we are looking at adjective clauses. So you need a signal word of, we're dealing with people, so your signal word should be who. And so now my uncle and he are the same person here. So you need to make one of these sentences dependent. So you're going to substitute the subject, either my uncle or he, with the signal word who. So basically the signal word is going to replace the subject in one of these sentences. And then you need to place that sentence, what you just now made as a dependent clause, next to the noun in the larger independent clause. So for example, my uncle who opened a new store made a lot of money. Or it could be my uncle who made a lot of money opened a new store. Again, the trick here is to recognize that you need one of these sentences, either my uncle opened a new store or he made a lot of money. You need to recognize that one of those sentences will be your base, and you need to fit in the other sentence into the other one. As if that was not tricky enough, there's some other tricky stuff. So I mentioned before that there can be other signal words. Where can be used to describe a location. When can be used to describe a time. Whose will show possession. So the example over here in purple, the man whose car was stolen was very upset. Who owns the car? The man owns the car. So this shows possession. Please do not confuse whose, W-H-O-S-E, whose, with who is. And who is abbreviated W-H-O''S. That means who is. So you can say, who's hungry? And if you say who's hungry, you're really using the who is hungry. But whose, W-H-O-S-E, whose shows possession. The man whose car was stolen was very upset. Okay. Whom. This one is a pain. And the reason this is a pain is because there are a lot of rules and it's very confusing. And honestly, most Americans do not know how to use this. I'm going to give you a very quick way to understand when to use whom in 90 to 95% of the time. It will follow a preposition. So some of you are familiar with writing letters to people and you don't know specifically who you're writing a letter to. You would title this letter, "To whom it may concern." Notice, to. To is a preposition. In, on, from, by, for. All of these are prepositions. So if you want to use whom, to whom it may concern. So that's whom. Yes, there are other ones. I know some of you are going to ask me questions about it, but I'm telling you, just look for a preposition, and then 90–95% of the time, whom is going to follow the preposition. To whom it may concern. For whom are you looking? And then, to make it even more tricky, sometimes you don't need a signal word at all. So I told you identifying, yes, you're looking for signal words, but you need to understand how the sentences work because sometimes there will not be a signal word. For example, I remember all the times that you told me before. That's fine, but guess what? You don't need that. I remember all the times you told me before. Now that's harder to identify because you don't have the signal word. But you should recognize you told me before as a subject, verb, and an object. But that is secondary to the I remember part of the sentence. So the I remember is the main clause. You told me before would be the dependent clause tucked into the other sentence. Okay. Let's keep going. Okay, punctuation. Sometimes you're going to see an adjective clause offset by commas. Offset means that a comma will start and end the clause. The example I use here, Professor Loria, who is my grammar teacher, gives us too much homework. It's just an example. It's not true. You know it's not. Anyway, please notice that Professor Loria is a proper noun, meaning you know who this is. You know who this person is. And it's capitalized. The person has a name. So the information that follows this proper noun is extra information. You really don't need it to know who you're talking about. So because it's extra, it's not necessary, and it's called a non-essential clause, right? You know who Professor Loria is. So the extra information is truly extra, so you can put commas around it, meaning you can take that out of the sentence altogether and you still know who Professor Loria is. Compare that to the next example. The teacher who gave me too much homework canceled class today. Which teacher? I don't know. It could be a couple of different teachers. You won't know which teacher until you read the clause, because it's not a proper noun. It's a common noun. So you have to read the clause to know who you're talking about. So now this information is essential. This is an essential clause. You need it to understand the sentence, so no commas are needed here. And then I give a few other examples. My brother who lives in Atlanta, while brother is a common noun, I know who my brother is. Just like if you write a sentence about members of your family, if you say your father, your mother, your sister, you know who these people are. So you would put a comma after it. But your friend, well, I hope you have a few friends, so your friend could be a lot of different friends. Which friend? Oh, the friend with the pink hair, or the friend who has the pink hair. Okay. Anyway, let's keep going. Okay. Yes, a little bit tricky, and partly because of their location. These are now in the middle of the sentence. And the signal words are a little bit tricky because sometimes you don't even need one. So you really do, you can look for the signal word to identify the clause, but that's not going to help you if there's no signal word there. You really need to know how these clauses work in the sentence, and you really need to be able to identify the subject, verb, and object in the independent and in the dependent clause. And this is going to help you when we look at our last clause, noun clauses, and they're the toughest. So let's do some exercises first to make sure you understand all this. Tune in next time.